Whoa, was that a fun night. Anyway, just got off the phone with Coach. Tells me there's a trade that happened or something. I don't know. He told me to get to the facilities early so we can talk about it. So I gotta get there quick. Whoa, yo, look at this douchebag coming off. Yo, fuck you, buddy. Alright, anyway, so better get to the facilities early and check and see what this is about. Yo, what's going down, everybody? It is Straight Outta Boston here, aka the King of Boston, and today we are back with episode 40 of the Tragic Bronson MyCAREER. And before I get into anything else, yes, there was a trade, whatever you want to say it. There was a trade that went down. It was David Lee and Harrison Barnes for Amari Stoudemire and Chase Budinger. Now, this did not really happen randomly. I got hit with the little meet the GM thing or whatever, and told me to select 5 players. I had Chase Budinger as one of them because I felt we could use a backup small forward, as we do not have Richard Jefferson anymore. So I threw in Chase Budinger. I did not realize that they were going to try and trade David Lee too, or Harrison Barnes. I have mixed opinions about the trade. I think that I was fine with David Lee. I don't really know what more Amari could do, although I will say he's been very fun to play with. But I like Harrison Barnes a lot more than I like Chase Budinger. So I'm kind of iffy on the trade, but it is what it is. Maybe I'll have to go to the Knicks one day and play with David Lee and Harrison Barnes. It's actually kind of funny. David Lee does go to his old team. He was traded by the Knicks before the 2010-2011 season, I do believe. So that's pretty interesting. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about the gameplay too much this commentary. What I really want to talk about is my thoughts on the All-Star game, because I don't want to talk about the gameplay again, because I think, I don't know, maybe it's starting to get a little bit stale. Or at least it is for me, commentating wise, just talking about the gameplay. So I want to talk about the All-Star game, my opinions on that. So first off, I'll say I kind of agree with what Lumberjack said on this one when he voiced his opinions about the All-Star game. It's hard to talk about the All-Star starters because the All-Star starters aren't necessary. I mean, it's a voting. It's a vote, so it's a fan vote, and that means that it's not necessarily about player skill. It's about marketing. It's about league-wide popularity. If Chris Humphries, one of the most hated players in the NBA, ends up, averaging 30 points and 20 rebounds a game, chances are he might not get selected to start the All-Star game because, he's just not very, he's not very popular amongst the fans. And so it's hard to talk about, the starters or whatever, but what I really want to talk about is the reserves. And I feel that there were a few snubs here. I think, in my opinion, there are about 2 big snubs on each side. I'll start with the Eastern Conference. It's a little bit easier to talk about. It's a little bit, not more obvious, but a little bit clearer on who I think should have been in, who I think should have not been in. I'll say that I agree with all of the All-Stars except for Luol Deng. I don't think Luol Deng should have been an All-Star. I guess that the voters, or the coaches or whatever, felt that the 5th place team in the East maybe deserved 2 All-Stars if it had 2 good players, but I don't know. I think that the 2 biggest snubs in the Eastern Conference were easily Josh Smith and Brook Lopez. Now, a lot of people say Brook Lopez is the biggest snub. I tend to agree with that, but I don't think you can just put away what Josh Smith has done for his team. Now, Josh Smith, I think, is a guy that he's never been an All-Star before, but he's had All-Star type seasons. And I'm actually just going to talk right through this halftime report, but he's had All-Star type seasons, but I think the thing is he doesn't seem to be too popular amongst some of the coaches in the NBA. I think he's already been suspended this year due to contract detrimental to his own team. He's the type of guy that has immense athleticism and immense talent, but he doesn't seem to utilize that talent so much sometimes. It seemed like for the first half of his career, so he was just trying to, hang out at the 3-point line, chuck threes up, and prove that he's an all-around player instead of trying to develop his low post game and his pick and roll game in a little bit. But I mean, he's very versatile, and I think that he's had a great year. I think he's averaging, 17 points, I believe 10 rebounds, and 3 assists to go along with a block and a half and steal and a half. So statistically, he's been extraordinary. His team has been doing okay. They've been very inconsistent, the Hawks have. And, I think maybe that's part of it. Maybe the Hawks aren't really, they haven't been getting a lot of national attention, and maybe that's part of the reason why the coaches didn't vote in Josh Smith. But anyway, I think Josh Smith is a huge snub. I also think Brook Lopez was a huge snub. He's probably more of a snub than Josh Smith, quite honestly. I think that both of them should have gone in over Luol Deng and Chris Bosh. And I'll talk about Chris Bosh in just a moment, as well as Luol Deng. I kind of skipped over him. But first I want to talk about Brook Lopez. Lopez is, I can't remember quite what his average is. I think it was around 18.7 rebounds and 2.5 blocks, but 2.1 blocks, I believe, per game. And I think that it's safe to say that he is probably the best player on that Nets team. I think he's better than Darren Williams has been this year. He's been much better than Joe Johnson. And other than that, they don't have anyone else on that team that's nearly as skilled as those three players. You could argue Gerald Wallace, but I don't think he's as skilled. I think he just relies on his hustle and grit a little bit more. But anyway, Brook Lopez, 18, the numbers never lie, as people like to say, and his numbers are superior to any other center in the Eastern Conference. Now, his defense has been much improved. His rebounding has been much improved, which are really his two kind of, not deficient, I guess deficiencies would be a good word coming into the season. His offensive game has always been there. Health has always been a risk, but he's been fairly healthy this year, aside from missing a few games earlier in the year. But, he should be up in consideration for maybe NBA's most improved player, too. He's just improved in so many aspects of his game. He's certainly not the rebounder that, Kevin Love is, or anything. I don't think he's ever going to become that, but he's done what he's had to do. He had to improve his rebounding, he had to improve his defense. He's done both. And like I said, I think Chris Bosh is just, he's the third most important player. He's not very valuable to his team. I'm sure that Chris Bosh probably adds 6 or 7 wins to that team, but in terms of the fact that that knocks them down from like a 60-win team to like a 55-win team or something like that, it's not a big deal, quite honestly, and I think they could still win a championship without him. So I just think that, Brook Lopez and, my mind blanked for a sec. Brook Lopez and Josh Smith are both more deserving. And Luol Deng, he's a great defender, he's had a good season, but I just don't think that, I don't even think he should have been an all-star last year, first of all. I just think that maybe he's not as flashy or something. Maybe there's just something I don't really like about his game. And I also don't think that he'd be putting up nearly the numbers he would if Derrick Rose had been healthy, but that's besides the point. So anyway, those are my kind of thoughts on the Eastern Conference. Other snubs, J.R. Smith, who I don't think should have gone in. Paul Pierce, who I also don't think should have gone in because he's been, he's averaging 19 points a game, but that's pretty misleading. He's shooting like 40%, and he's, God, I mean, sometimes I just watch him play, and he looks so old and so low, and he's definitely not deserving of an All-Star game, and I don't think the Celtics deserve 3 All-Stars to go along with KG and Rajon Rondo because they're a team that's, I don't even think they're in the playoffs at this point in the standings. So anyway, let's move on to the Western Conference. Really, another 2 big snubs in my opinion. These ones are a little bit more obvious instead of the Josh Smith one, which I don't think a lot of people are talking about, but the question with the West is who do you replace? Now, I think the 2 biggest snubs are Marc Gasol and Steph Curry. Steph Curry has been, I'm going to say it right now, he's an MVP candidate. I mean, for a team that's 5th in the West, they cannot be surviving without him. I realize that David Lee is also an All-Star, and that it's hard to say that, a guy who's on another team with another All-Star that's only in 5th place in the West is an MVP candidate, but Steph Curry is so valuable to his team. If you've watched the Warriors over the past 2 years, you can tell that they've missed him when he's gone out with his ankle problems. But now that he's finally healthy this year, he's having an extraordinary season. 20.9 points per game, 6.6 assists as I speak, although that could be changing after the Bulls game that's taking place tonight, Wednesday night, even though this video, or not Wednesday night, Friday night. I don't know why I thought it was Wednesday. Friday night. But, he's so deserving. He's easily the biggest snub. He's probably the best shooter in the NBA, shooting, 45% from 3-point on 7.1 attempts per game. That's a lot of attempts. To be making it that consistently, that's pretty amazing. That guy deserves to be an All-Star. There's no doubt about it. I don't know who you replace. In my opinion, you replace LaMarcus Aldridge. He struggled the first half of the year. He's kind of picked it up recently, but his defense is horrendous. He's shooting only 45%, I believe, for a big man. That is not that good. But, I just think that, Steph Curry is way more deserving than LaMarcus Aldridge. Aldridge is arguably the 2nd or 3rd most important player on that team. I think it all starts with Lillard, quite honestly, and then Nicholas Batum's defense and versatility honestly sets the tone for that team. And then maybe you start to talk about LaMarcus Aldridge, who, like I said, is a guy who's horrendous on defense and is, quite frankly, just not been too impressive this year. But anyway, I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to move on to Marc Gasol. I think he's probably the best defensive player in the NBA. I don't know if, maybe the coaches didn't want to take Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol, but I think you can't deny Marc Gasol. I mean, he's probably a top 3 center in the NBA at this point, and quite honestly, you can make an argument for him starting over Dwight Howard, but like I said before, the starters are kind of a popularity contest. But anyway, Marc Gasol definitely should be in. I don't know quite what his stats are, but he deserves it. I think he should be in over probably. This is really tough. This is where I struggle, and I'm probably going to talk straight through this press conference. But anyway, I think he should probably be in over. Not. This is really where it gets hard. I can't think of it. If you guys can, think of someone who maybe Marcus All should be in over, then let me know in the comments. But anyway, that's pretty much gonna wrap up this video. So I thank you guys for watching. Hope you did enjoy. As always, I'm out. Peace.
Oh yeah, it has to be a focus for me every game. I know that if I don't make it a top priority to rebound, my man's gonna eat me alive on the offensive glass. First and foremost, it is all about the fundamentals, baby. Take smart shots, make your passes count, and always box out. The moment I forget that, I'm in trouble. I just wish that all those rebounds helped us get the win.